Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode with me, Jo Whitaker. And we have again, I'm delighted to have again, Shaman Hope. After our conversation last week, we were still talking on many topics, and we really felt that we had to come back. And the title of today's topic was something that has both been playing on our minds. And I guess we came to this conclusion because, especially for me, being kind of newly awake spiritually, we found there's so many people that, guide you on this journey. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Follow me. Follow me. And like we were saying to ourselves, what is the difference actually between a spiritual leader and a cult leader? How do you know which direction to go? So, without further ado, Shaman Hope, would you mind just briefly talking about yourself, a little bit of a brief background again for those who don't know?
You talk about me, where I come from. I had a formal shamanic apprenticeship that I passed through in 1978, and I've been living a shamanic life since then. As time goes on, I found out that I believe more in science and quantum physics than I do the mythology and foundational training that I had in the beginning, and a lot of psychology parts with it. On this topic, I thought a lot since we decided to start this topic. And the first thing is maybe we should define what these two people are. One of them, the spiritual leader, and that would be the person that genuinely cares about the individual they're working with, and a good listener. That wants to listen to what they're saying exactly and what they're saying in between the lines, and help them get to their desired place in life. Whereas the cult leader sees everybody as sheeple, commodities, somebody who has a bank account, and really tries to get everybody to empower their personal agenda. And they have different surveys that we hear about. 86% of the people are pretty much compliant. And I looked at that and I'm like, well, you know what? It doesn't have to stay that way. And I think that's what we've been seeing over the last couple of decades, is that people look around like we're no longer tribal. We're more individualists. We understand each other's personal rights. And that's where the spiritual leader comes in. And you can't have that conformity within a dogmatic religion and so on. And wants to help people become that unique being, to enjoy their human experience to the utmost of their capabilities, where at the same time the cult leader mentality goes, no, don't go over there. It's a trap. It's evil demons. Come with me. I will save you. And I see way too much of that.
Yeah, well, we'll go into the details of maybe some signs to look for. But one of the things you and I both agreed with was I'm also a personal trainer. And what I say to my clients at the beginning is my aim is to educate you so much that you leave me. That is graduating, because I've empowered you, I've taught you, and you've found your own way. And I think that's a really important part of being a good teacher, rather than being a good, lecturer or, somebody that people then rely on. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I agree completely. And even with the apprenticeships, people say, well, you could do online courses like that. I'm like, well, no, I couldn't. I could if I wanted to be really, really generic. But then I'm just turning out, we say over in the States, these cookie cutter type people. They're all the same. But they're not going to be really proficient. They're not going to serve the community well. So the first couple of years is that deep dive into the person to deprogram and so on. But then the rest of it is exploring what's this person's really unique qualities, and help that person really self-accept, self-love, and bring out all those things that were hidden by social and religious programming to become that really unique being, because they'll be able to be a lot more proficient and have more powerful impact on the people that they work with, because they're living, they're a living example of that practice.
Definitely true. And I think there's always this temptation. Do you know when you have made something work for yourself, there is this temptation to say, this works, copy and paste it. But what I realised doing my personal training is what a lot of the other personal trainers were doing is they were, getting diet sheets and online, and and I think you can buy them and quite easily badge them to yourself, and then they'd give them to the client along with their exercise regime, and everybody got the same thing. And so people would then go through this process of getting fitter, but then at the end they were like, I don't know what to do, because actually that wasn't me. You're not integrating that lifestyle into my life and how I live it and how I see it. I've brought somebody else's. So when people go on a diet or an exercise plan, at the end, what's left? So I spent much more time speaking, to my clients and saying, right, we have to figure, which takes a lot longer, right? It's a lot harder. You have to figure out, what your lifestyle is and what you respond to and what you like and what you don't like, and because you have to be motivated, and let's work out how to carry on living your life, but make it better. Let's do less of the stuff that isn't serving you and more of the stuff, because people aren't entirely useless, are they? More of the stuff that benefits you, but you might not see the wood for the trees because it's your life, but I can. Does that work a similar way?
Yeah, but the other part about it is if you're really good at getting deep into them and getting out the obstacles and the old programming, and you're really good at helping them make these good, fast accomplishments, these big leaps, at the same time, that individual's personality is now changing. So if you work with somebody over a year, you did 3 months with them one way, and then you notice that there's not quite, I wouldn't want to say resistance, but you're just not making the same progress. But it's a good sign, because you've gotten this person so far so fast. Now you have to change your technique. Well, that takes the personal trainer, the shaman, the spiritual leader, that they have to step back a minute and recalibrate themselves and their relationship with the person they're working with, and reformulate the approach that they're going to be working with that person. Whereas as a cult leader sees that person making this big strides, and I'm getting ready to lose this one. It's going to cost me X amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, come back. You're going the wrong way, And so with the growing pains too, that come up with this fast progress, and it's all about getting into the core. And as you get through one more layer, the pressure, like if this is the core, the pressure of all the programming and life stuff has been holding them down. And when you lift this off, boom, these other issues come up that need clearing and cleansing and healing, past traumas and so on. So it's constantly just this radar sonar thing of just pinging back to the person. And sometimes you have to just really change your application and your procedure with them, because they're not the same person that they started with you.
This is very true. And as they get, more confident about themselves, they start revealing more about themselves as well. Because they're like, well, that was great. What else can I fix? I would just want to. We've got a comment from a dear friend of mine for many years, and he's on the comment, says crazy blind man. He is blind, but he is a martial arts expert. He is an expert in herbology, in crystals, in all sorts of things. And I think because he hasn't got his sight, he then uses other parts of himself, and he really listens. And what he says really resonates with people. And so, for instance, on the comments here, he says, I heal with my eyes through seeing the colours in people. So he's able to see what is maybe ailing people before, even if they're not quite sure what it is they need to fix. And he's on my plant power group, and he just chimes in with the most amazing things, like because he thinks differently. And I think, people like him who have not ever been able to be, put in a box and put in a, in a treadmill, come out and with these amazing, gifts and abilities that, being in a cult and everybody doing the same thing just doesn't work for.
No, if anything, it'd make that person feel even worse. because we're pack animals. We want to fit in, and then you go from, and these other people that go from spiritual leader to spiritual leader, because they just don't feel fulfilled, and then they're the ones that end up feeling really bad too because I can't fit in. I must be really messed up, But it's nice, like your friend here, really embraced what they were getting and worked with it and see that becomes that really really unique person that can really benefit people from what other people would call a handicap.
Absolutely. And he helps so many people. He's always helping people. He's got so much knowledge and he shares it willingly. I mean, he's anything but handicapped. He really isn't. His knowledge is phenomenal. And the way that he explains it is very sort of thoughtful and careful, and he picks up on other things. Unlike, as you say, a cult leader that is like almost like teaching a class, and they're like, right, this is what I want you to learn. It's dogmatic, and actually it's quite funny when we were talking about this topic during lockdown. I went out running a lot and getting really fit and outside, and I couldn't stand being cooped up. And I was listening to lots of podcasts from this. I have to remember what the name of the organization is, because it's very good the way that they did it. So I listened to podcasts on dictators, serial killers, and cult leaders. And it went, instead of just saying that this happened and that happened and this happened, it went through the psychology of these people, but it also went through the psychology of the people that followed. And I think, having listened to those many stories, actually a dictator and a cult leader, basically from what I can see, are pretty much the same type of people, actually. It just depends on how far they're up. I think it's really helped me like spot the signs, because these, and especially the way this documentary, these podcasts were done, it was trying to explain the yearning or the reason why some of these cult leaders want to be leaders and want people to follow them. It is usually about, well, listen, there can either be an agenda, which maybe is a dictator, but if it's a cult leader, it's often about them and what they need, and you can spot these signs. And that's what I learned from going through these podcasts. Now I can see it around me from people who with these big followings and what they're saying. I'm like, are you saying that because that is the right thing to say, or are you saying it because you're going to get a load of follows and a load of likes after? Because that might not be the right thing to say. What do you think?
Yeah, but again, when we start saying things like the right thing, again, that's according to perceptions and so on. So I mean, you and I think, share a lot of what we would call the same ethics, so what we would consider the right for this conversation. But yeah, also what I've seen with the teachers is when they've not had any formal training, not in a curriculum, but in a procedural training environment, like really how to listen, really how to read between the lines, and how to explore, they come into the teaching environment, the spiritual leading environment, with their perceptions of how things are. And it's basically, if you were to open up, they're on page 1, maybe getting to page 2, but they've never seen page 3. And they're trying to go that, but because they can't really explore further, they can't get to page 3. So they're going to do page 2A, page 2B. They're going to take the beginning levels and make this bigger curriculum out of basic 101 stuff, beginner stuff, and then really be hard on the students or the followers if the students start to figure out, wait a minute, there's more. Kind of like the church. What do you mean you think the world's round? You burn them, And so, no offense to the Christians. But the fact of it is, one of the big signs is when the leader doesn't want to learn or is so absolute in what they're saying, that's when you should leave that person. That would be my advice. Because if you're doing things right, you're providing shortcuts through the training so they don't have to make the same mistakes or miscalculations. And if you're really doing well, that person will make some discovery or some their own philosophy around something, and you'll go, oh wow, I didn't think of that. And you can actually learn a different perspective, or learn technique from your student. That means you did a good job.
Absolutely. And you're right, I need to get out of this habit, and I'll try to get out of this habit of right or wrong. It is perspective. And I think we're all used to speaking certain types of language because we hear it a lot, and then we then start talking in that way. But you're absolutely right. It's not, if you just which is how we're all taught at school, right? We're taught, go for this, go for this, go for this. But that isn't really trying to get to the bottom of actually what is it we're trying to do with this person? What is it that they need? Because if you think about it from that point of view, you will bring all the tools in that to build them up in the way that they need, or they're created. So my clients, when they come to me, I do an assessment at first. So I'm listening to how they live their lifestyle, I'm looking at their bodies, and I'm trying to think, where do I need to start? What is that thing about that person that will empower them, so that then they'll carry on? And you're absolutely right. The number of times but then the next session, sorry, they come back and I say, how did you get on? Because then they've taught me something, because I can go, right, I thought that would work for you, but it didn't. So we're going to try this. Because whenever I've gone out on a limb before and said, I know this, it's correct, let's do it, there's always been a time when it really isn't. So I really try and avoid to say that. Say, well, this is what I find under these circumstances, this works, but we need to work it for you. And I see a lot of these leaders that say, this is this is that, this is the other. I'm like, it can't possibly work for everybody. I don't understand what, why they would say it. Have you got anybody in mind that, without sort of naming names, have you got any or any phrases or anything that?
Yeah, it's good you put in there without naming names, right? But yeah, I've seen a few of them, and I've gone out to the limb a few times and written articles on them when I had a blog, or and brought them out in public because they were dangerous in what they were doing. And then if they would give out a technique, if you can call it that, or instructions to get these people to go along a certain way, saying that if they do this, they're going to become enlightened and so on, or whatever, and then not, and then they blame it on the person. Well, you must not be being honest with me. You must be, you're not doing your internal work. That's why this technique didn't work for you, But what I've noticed with people, they'll tell you what's wrong with their life or what they think is wrong with them by what they'll say directly. But if you're listening a little bit, they're going to, by what they're not saying or what they're saying to the side, is the exact plan of what they need to get to where they want to be. And a quick example of that would be, so yeah, I don't have any confidence, or, my health, I'm feeling weak. I feel like I have negative energies around me. I want to get stronger, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So what do you think that you would need? Oh, I don't know. Okay. Do you know anybody else that had similar problems? What did they do? Oh, I had a friend that went to a Reiki circle. Oh, I had a friend that did a sweat lodge. Oh, I had a friend that was buried. We have a Yawipwi ceremony. They bury you in the ground, bring you up the next day, reborn. What that person is not saying, but also what gives you what they need, they're saying, I need a ceremony. And then if you keep listening a little bit more about what they're going to give more description of, you can start to design the architecture of the exact ceremony they need by them giving you the information of how to build it and conduct it. And why they need all that is a deep, deep mystery that would take a while to get into. But it all still comes back down to how willing are you to listen to all the details to make the best impact on that person. Whereas the cult leader goes, I know what your problem is. You need to do this. If it doesn't work, it's your fault. Like, wow.
That reminds me of when I used to go to like normal GPs here in the UK. So eat some paracetamol, and if it hasn't gone in a few days, then come back. But you're absolutely right. And Mark's just written here, the trouble with people these days is they don't use all their senses and all of them together. And I think he's right with that. And I think it's because people don't have confidence in their own senses. And so I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying about how to do an experiment. And I said, you know what? I'm used to doing experiments. My scientists have done it. I've done it all my life. The way that I want to do this is I just want to experience it fully. I'm not judging it against something else. I just want to use all my senses and see what happens. I don't need to do it like book style or dogmatic style. I'm going to listen to myself and figure out how I fully feel about it in my whole body and my whole mind. And I think we don't, we have to, like you've just said, we have to tease things out of people because they don't know. Their mind is so busy. Shall I do this that person's done? Shall I do that person's done? Shall I do that's on Instagram? Rather than sitting still and thinking, what do I need? What is it? What's coming up for me?
Mm-hmm. Right. You know, but in working with people, again, if they're not really honest with you, it's really hard to get in there deep, you know, because we've all been betrayed or by some issue of, and by the way, my perspective on that is if you feel betrayed or feel somebody wronged you, you held them to a standard of which they were not capable of holding. So you're actually, I stopped being disappointed and feeling betrayed by people because I was being unfair to them, you know. And when I realized that, I didn't have trust issues anymore. People do what they do. So that's the other part, you know, when you helping people relook at things that would get them what they call hurt. And that's part of empowering a person that the cult leader won't do. You know, but in training with people like in apprenticeships, when they're asking what's going on and they get into that, like new ground, exploring new personal territory, and they don't know really what's coming up next, that's when the good spiritual leader asks questions about their experience in that position in that mentality. Whereas the cult leader comes in and tells them what they're experiencing. And because they're looking for answers, and this person is in that authoritative position, that trusted, because they have 1 million followers, they must know what they're talking about, you know. And then they go to try it and it still doesn't work, and then they fault themselves again. And then the cult leader keeps feeding that fire. Yeah, you're right. You know, it is your fault because you're not getting with the program. You know, you need to do these things. You need to go to my retreat, you know, take out a loan, you know, that kind of a thing, instead of telling the person, hold on a second, maybe you're thinking about this too much. You know, go to the beach, go to the river, go out in nature, just sit and relax for a few minutes. We'll talk later, you know. And let the person catch up at their own speed, you know.
So do you work with clients now? How do you work?
Oh, I'll do things online. I'll do online appointments these days. And I have to be honest, I don't feel, I'm one of these guys, I'm hard on myself with being that perfectionist in details. I don't feel I give out the same product online because they're not sitting right in front of me. I don't feel that aura to aura connection. You know, although I've been noticing what I would call more of an interdimensional connection, doing more stuff online, if that makes sense. You know, let me explain that real quick to people because it helps when they think about astral projections and all that other new age stuff. If I make a dot right here, probably can't see that.
Yeah,
and
I can.
Somebody wants to be here, and our normal thoughts, whether it's astral projection or whatever, they're going to draw a line down through there, right? You know, I think of it more like this. You know, and so that's what I mean when I say things like interdimensional time displacement, and you know, where the cult leader will go, no, you must go this path. But the only thing that I don't do with people one-on-one online is the energy healing stuff. I do that more around my fire area, my own personal ceremony area, and I'll have the interview with them, and then I'll go do my work, and I'll tell them when I'm doing that work.
Wow.
But the conversations and stuff like that, the regular counseling, I'll do online, like we're doing here. I don't do it with own phone. I like to watch the person's movements and facial expressions and stuff. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I like what you said about interdimensional is, since a lot of things have become online, I was very skeptical about how these things can work. And I think you are being a little bit hard on yourself. We had a good conversation before, not today, but last week. And you taught me loads of things in that amount of time that I wouldn't have found out otherwise, because I probably can't get to you that, right now. I'll promise to visit you one day.
Okay.
And I also find that I do a lot of online calls and things like that. And I actually feel like it's not the same connection, I agree, but we're way more connected even online than I thought we would be. And I don't understand what mechanism that is happening, but I do think that this technology that's around us, it isn't just for the mundane or for anybody else's agenda. I think it's technology, and I think it works in ways that aren't necessarily very explainable with 3D and electronics. So I think if people did want to try it, I would highly recommend it. There's a lot you can get out online.
No, I agree. And again, like when I was before the whole scamdemic thing, I was traveling throughout mostly Eastern, but then also Western Europe for 5 years. And I met all those people initially online. But again, here's another example with exploration and evolution where the cult leader is pretty much totally against these progressive kind of, when I say progressive in a good way, applications, whereas the spiritual leader is just like, hey, that's an interesting theory. How do we explore that? How do we test this, and help set up the student or a group or whatever at any level, meaning that, I've been doing this, like I said, since 78 professionally. So, but meeting with people that are just getting into it and then listening to their ideas about constructing an experiment that can get everybody to the higher level. And that's, again, part of good spiritual leadership is letting someone else take the lead if you realize you're not capable of that situation because of experience or the fact that you might just not have any ideas.
So bringing ideas in from the group. When people are there with you, do you do groups? What kind of, talk us through what kind of ceremonies or things that you've carried out before for those people that have never experienced this and might be wondering.
The strongest experience were the healing. I'm saying ceremony because I don't have a better descriptive synonym. Activities, people like the word ceremony. It gives it a spiritual importance, I suppose. But in Eastern Europe, especially in Hungary and Romania, the people were so open, to the things that I was doing. And so I worked with 6 people just in that time period with terminal cancer. The shortest one that lived longer was a 9-year-old boy, lived to be 11, but got forced to go back onto chemo and then died. But there have been several where people, their tumors, their internal bleeding tumors that they had just went away. And basically what I was doing was talking to the group and giving them the opportunity to shoot down what we planned. How would it not work? And I would just go ask with another question, not to say they're wrong or anything like that. I'm like, okay, well, let's have a discussion on this. And when they all got to the point, like, yeah, you know what, this really could work. Okay, well, if it really could work, then let's just push a little bit harder and allow it to actually work without any doubt. And that's when I got some of the best results. I don't get the same participation in the United States with that, you know. And the Hungarians were my hardest audience to talk to. I mean, they were tough. But yet when they decided to join in, you know, so we did a lot with them. The sweat lodges are great because they're like a pressure cooker for the spirit. You're in there in a closed-in environment. And it's interesting, too, that people who say they're severely claustrophobic, I'll let them go in there first and sit for a little while, and they go fine. So they may not be able to even go into a sauna for 10 minutes because of the heat or because it's a small room, but they can stay in a sweat lodge for an hour. You know, and that's a simple thing of, not geometry, but alchemy, um, and sacred geometry. And so by that, your body gets to this point where it's just shutting down non-essential systems. So you're getting to sitting there in your spirit in physical form without all the programming going on in the back of your mind. And that's when people really open up and get things. You don't need all the hallucinogens. You don't need the drugs and all that. You know, you just need to put your body into a little bit of a stressful situation, but wisely. The energy healing circles that we would do, you know, were great for people because when they actually heard the feedback after a couple of weeks when somebody came back and then he said, oh yeah, my tumor disappeared. Doctor said it was faulty equipment, so on. You know, then they actually see it. But then the difference between, again, the cult leader and then the good spiritual leader, the cult leader says, see, by believing in me, these things can happen. Where I say, we were the team. We all did this together. You know, I just gave you the plan to follow. Later on, you can come up with your own plan with your own group and do the same thing I'm doing, if not even better. And that has happened since then. You see, so that looks like a well-fed cat.
Yeah, she's called Potato because she
Oh,
looks
really?
like potato.
Yeah.
That isn't a real name. She's really called Storm, but that's her nickname. She's to be fair to her, she's only got little legs, so she keeps getting beaten up when she goes outside. So she stays in a lot. So I can't blame her really. Uh,
Okay.
Thank you for that explanation, and you're right. Like distracting the mind. You know, I've never been I've been in a sauna. I've never done one of these sweat lodges before, so I'd be interested to try that experience because you're right. Trying to switch off from your programming. Even when I've done ceremonies before, I had in my head a preconceived idea, which you shouldn't have. You've got to try and get rid of that because otherwise that's what's going to happen or whatever. And I think that's the hardest. I think that's the hardest thing. Like not overthinking things and just feeling things and it's sensing what's around you rather than. Yeah, I think we said it last time, but every single morning I wake up, before I go to bed, I try and program myself, my mood that I'm going to wake up in. So to make it, like, I'm motivated and energized. And I know that if I don't do that, then whatever's been niggling at me, I'm going to wake up with that on my mind. Oh, it's not a very good day or whatever. But I wake up and the weather isn't that great to look outside. Oh, no, but I feel good and motivated. Why? Because I programmed my own mind. As simple as that. But because if you don't program your mind, somebody else is going to do it for you, right?
Yep. No, that's true. You know, the thing about, too, with the cult leader, they miss a lot of really good stuff. And I was thinking about back in the sweat lodges in Hungary, for one, we didn't have the trees that we would normally use, or at least, well, I didn't know that they were available. After this, I started using hazelnut, which is wonderful. And a woman there, she had a spiritual retreat. She said, well, I'd like to have it here. But I feel like it here, but there's this hill. I'm like, well, we can dig into the hill. So I and her husband for 2 days dug this into this hillside, put the over, and then came back the next weekend, started building the lodge, and it was a beautiful lodge inside this hill. Now, all the cult leader type people of sweat lodge were like, no, you don't do that. It's not tradition. You know, tradition, I heard a kid was saying, well, the tradition is peer pressure from dead people. Okay, that's beautiful. So, and it's dogma a lot of times. And then so we have this normal thing. You have the sweat lodge, you have the altar, and then you'll have the fire area where you heat the rocks. And she says, do I have to have it in this line? I'm like, no, you don't. Now, the other spiritual leader in the area would have said, yes, you do, and wouldn't have said that she could dig into into the hillside and all that. Basically, I'd never done a sweat lodge like that before, and I had a very simple 4-step things that I do inside, but it depends on the language, the cultural foundation, and so on. Because by trying to force all this in there, it won't work. Sometimes it won't work, or it'll have a really bad result. If you flow with it, it'll do a good thing. That lodge, when I say it's a powerful lodge, it means you go in and you can feel yourself, your physiology start to change. And everybody said the same thing. It felt like it went on forever.
Wow.
And now you're saying you're in a hole in a hill with earth behind you, and in some parts almost 2 meters high. And so, but everybody said it felt like it's in space, it's in forever. Never in any sweat lodge have I ever heard that before. And so I got to really experience something there. Um, uh, One woman had internal bleeding 9 years, and another one she was starting to have 2. She thought she was going to have a full hysterectomy. Okay. And we got out, and some of the people said, well, what if we meditated on the sweat lodge while you're in there with her? So, and everybody's like, yeah. Okay, why would I go against that? One person, and this is all a bunch of strangers, and I'm the stranger there too. I don't speak Hungarian, you know. And so I looked at that. I'm like, okay, so I got a suggestion from the people. Everybody else said, yeah. And I said, so what kind of meditation? Oh, what do you think? So they just handed the torch over to me. And I'm like, well, if everybody put their hands on top of it and just let it rain down like golden light, and then picture that going down inside of us as we're working on this woman, because I have me and 2 apprentices in there. And then that would start the lodge, and then people could come in after that. And they, yeah, and then they said, yeah, and then we could sing some Hungarian songs. Okay. You see what I'm saying? The cult leader would go, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. And I'm like, sure. Oh, it sounds beautiful.
Powerful.
And then the people also like, but is it okay? That's the social programming. They're worried about saying something stupid, doing something that's wrong. I'm like, no, I think it's beautiful. I don't think I could have come up with a better plan. Let's do it. So now they're feeling more accepted, more empowered, and that adds to the healing ceremony. You see? And all these little pieces contribute to this. That's where the cult leader misses out. That's where the cult leader robs that opportunity from people. 2 weeks later, that woman went to the doctor, said the internal bleeding had stopped. After 9 years, no one could do anything for her, and the tumors were gone.
Wow.
And so, and again, like I said, the other one where that biochemist said that you get the story right that people can logically accept. The body does the rest, the spine does the rest. It's a pharmacy. And so this is where the cult leader is going to get rich by selling the new age foo-foo stuff, giving the perfect readings and all that, and the only one that benefits from their efforts or their activities is them, period. There was a guy in Arizona years ago that killed like 10, 11 people in Sedona, Arizona. This guy was going to make $500,000 in a weekend, $10,000 to be in his sweat lodge, packed it up with there with like 50 some people, and then, but pushing people. Yeah, you got to be the warrior. You got to be doing, I sit there and I talk to everybody that's getting ready to go to the lodge, either through a translator or if they speak English great, or you have to know what's going on. And this is where this Aya tourism, that's a cult. To go someplace, drink ayahuasca or eat mushrooms and trip out. And, you got messed up because you didn't do your work. That's cult leader mentality. you know.
I think it's because it's so new to so many people that they look for someone big and famous with a big following because they're nervous, and they think because everybody else is following them that's a safe thing. Whereas I've always been quite opposite to that. For a start, I've got very good intuition, and that's how I make my judgment calls. And my mantra my whole life has been: if there's a bandwagon, don't go in that direction because they're going to the circus. So I've always felt about very many things, and but I don't think a lot of people have that confidence in their own intuition, and so therefore, they make choices because the herd did rather than who they are. But if they, like you said right, very, very much earlier on, if you stop still and listen, you can hear yourself.
Right.
But you have to stop. You have to stop. So you don't have to listen to everybody else. And I actually think that also makes me quite bad at making plans because people say,
Quite
"Do you want
bad
to
at
go here?"
making friends.
Plans,
Oh,
plans.
plans. Okay.
Because people are like, do you want to go here? And I'm like, I don't know. because everybody else is going on the thing, on whatever the headline is, and I'm like, oh, I don't really make decisions like that. Do you know what I mean? I usually make decisions, what do I feel like doing? So it does make me bad at making plans, and then I end up tagging on to other people's things, and sometimes I don't have anything to do because I'm waiting to to follow my way. So I guess that's the downside of leading with your intuition.
But at the same time, here, I'll tell you kind of a sad story. A buddy of mine, he was 68 years old when he taught me how to windsurf by
Right.
being out there with me all day. So only a few years older than I am now, right? And he said at his age he goes to a lot of funerals, and he was going to see a guy that he was on a submarine with in World War II.
Wow.
You know, and so he was going to go to his see him in the hospital. Well, when he get to here, he was already dead, but his wife was in total chaos, sadness, and he thought that was a little strong because she was a tough woman, knowing that he was dying soon. And she goes, "It didn't bother me that he died, other than normal. It was his last words. His last words with his last breath was, 'I wish I would have,' and then dead." That sent a chill through me. That just like, oh, that will not happen to me. And see, when we're writing, all of our lives are stories. The cult leader wants you to live their story. The good spiritual leaders want you to help you in the creative writing of your story. When you read it, even up to the last chapter, you go, "Wow, that's impressive." Okay, you know, and that's the thing. So the way that you're going through life, your last chapter will probably be pretty nice. When people read your story, they go, "Wow, okay, she's busy. She was doing some things. She lived a really fruitful life." And that's something that we should look at, because all your famous people, everybody called them idiots until their ideas worked, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we're right behind you, bro." you know. And see, and the good spiritual leader helps you break out of the chains of fear and failure to help you write that story and live it. To where you're really proud of your life, even if it's not going the way you want. You go, "This is my life. I did this, and I'm living it. And I'm okay with that." So.
Well, you know how synchronicity works. I posted something, I think it was on Facebook yesterday, and I was talking about actors and people who follow actors and celebrities, and what the definition of the word actor is. And it isn't just somebody who pretends to be somebody. It's also a word. Let me see if I can remember rightly. That is like get sheep to follow them. You have to remember my post where it was.
Right.
And so I specifically said, so be careful what celebrities you know, or anybody that you worship, because you are the actor, the main actor in your own story. So you are the actor. You don't need to be like them. And the reason why you're not, if you think that they're better or more famous, it's because you're spending time looking at them and not being the actor and the main character in your own story. And you have the ability. If you're not distracted by them, you have the ability. Listen to yourself. You're way better than you think you are.
You're the main actor and the writer and the director and the producer. You know, you're all of that. And that's what I tell people too. Again, the difference between the cult leader and the spiritual leader. If you start your evolutionary path and you want to change, and you say, you know what, with all this internal work that I've been doing, I realize I really don't want this. I want to do this instead. Okay, we can do that. But then when it doesn't work, or if it's not making the same progress, the cult leader goes, well, you should have, you should have just gone along with it. You shouldn't have changed it. Don't fix it if it's not broke. Where the spiritual leader goes, hold on a second. While you were writing and directing and producing this play of your life, okay, the stage crew was coming in with all the props, the stage, the lighting, the backdrops, everything like that. When you went from drama tragedy and you wanted to write it into action comedy, the stage had to be rebuilt. Energetically, everybody has to do things differently. We have to fire these actors, rehire some new ones, repaint the place, redo this like any renovation. It takes a little bit of time, and then you say, here, let's prove this by continuing this for like another 60 days. And then when they see progress, they're like, see, where the cult leader will have them keep going back and forth and nothing happens. Like, because you're not listening to me, that's why. Okay,
Yeah.
I give up. I surrender to the cult leader, So by the
That's it. And
way,
you give away your power, because you're right. It takes time for things to align. It's not going to happen like that. So you have to persevere with it. Have faith. Keep reminding yourself. It's not going to be straight. A straight line. And just bear with it. It's like for my clients with weight loss. I say, you're not going to get a line like this. It's going to go up and down like this. That's normal. That's life. It's quite interesting that your experience of what you do and what I've done seems to be quite similar, and that's probably because there's people involved, right?
Yeah, but if we had 50 people, there's going to be some people that will just go to you, and some people that will go to me, just off appearance, gender, history, culture, so on. And as they start to move up through things, they may, here, most of the people in the spiritual scene are female. Most of the leaders, acknowledged public leaders, are male. Right there's a bit of a mismatch.
Yeah.
Okay. And so a lot of times women will start with me, but then I look and go, look, you're starting to get into more feminine things here. I'm not the person for you to do this. Let me steer you over to somebody else. And let's say it was a girl that was like a boxer and things like that. You'd be my first choice. Like, hey, you need to talk to Joe, But and that's another big difference between the cult leader and the spiritual leader. The cult leader won't let go of their people. Where the good spiritual leader is like, okay, I don't have anything else I can do with you at this time. It would be better for you to go with this person over here for this reason. And so.
Yeah, that's proper love. That's proper care. That is, and that's when you've got a conscience, and you really want that person, to be better, feel better. You will make that decision. Whereas if you're a cult leader, you feel like you need to feed off the energy of other people. And Elisa here said, cult leaders are a form of narcissists. Yeah, it's like narcissists feed off other people's energy. It's like their oxygen. They literally cannot breathe by themselves. They need the oxygen of other people. And unfortunately, there's quite a lot of that behaviour around, and it's also a behaviour that people seem to be attracted to, because a lot of these people tend to be in these leadership because they come across as very strong, don't they? But it's not really a strength if you need a following. That doesn't show you strong. It shows the opposite.
Right, because that people are like, you wouldn't have been banned off TikTok 4 times if you didn't say the things you did. Next, like I care, it's TikTok. It's a Chinese communist app. Who cares? Or getting shadow banned on my other platforms. I'm just talking. It's funny, all those things I said came true, huh? all the things I was deplatformed for. I mean, imagine that.
Yeah.
So we have to look at that too. I mean, our governments and all that. I know we try to stay positive, but our governments are cult leaders. Period.
Yes.
All this other stuff. Because where's the encouragement? You don't hear from the authoritative figures. You don't hear any real encouragement. You don't hear anything about self-confidence, nurturing any health. Nothing. All you hear is, things are bad. Come look to me for advice. Trust what I tell you.
Yeah. And that's what I noticed first about with the pandemic. I was like, why aren't they getting people out to get fresh air, to get exercise? Why isn't it all about how to keep yourself healthy? And it's because they're not interested in that. Not interested in your well-being. Otherwise, you would. That's what you would do.
But they made so much comparisons to the Spanish flu on this. But the one thing that they really did back in the days of the Spanish flu is they put hospital beds outside in the sunlight. And they did the exact opposite with this. So the inconsistencies of this was just, pathetic. We could go on for that for an hour, right?
We could, but I reckon if we did it on this particular channel, it wouldn't stay up for very long. So maybe we've said it all. Everyone that knows, and by the way, everybody listening, so I'll put a link here to my various other channels. I run a plant power group where we talk about natural medicine and healing, and it's not just me. There's people on there. People say, "We've got this. What shall I do?" And we discuss it amongst ourselves. So crowd thoughts how to do that. And I'll put a link, obviously, to Shaman Hope. He's on Instagram, Facebook, and he's always putting out absolutely, brilliant content, straight, not just repeating stuff, but talking. And I always notice the comments that people come back to you. They're so grateful for, how you say it and what you say. And I just want to, thank you for all the work that you've been doing in creating those channels and helping people out.
Oh, thank you. Keeps me off the streets.
Yeah, it does. Now I'm sure that what we've been talking for nearly an hour now. Thank you for those comments that we've had so far. I'm sure that we will come back and revisit another topic. Everything's moving and changing super fast, and I just want to thank you again for today's conversation. Really, really interesting, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, I just wonder if we might ask the audience to give suggestions of topics that they'd like to hear us talk about.
Yeah, that's a fabulous idea. I put a little comment here. Yeah, we've just said that, haven't we? Instead of just me and you talking, let's look at some of the comments on here, and I'll put it on my social media channels as well. Let's start talking about stuff that people want to delve into, because I think I really like what's come out of the pandemic, like people, just normal people coming together, talking, and like not having a script, and just like seeing what's on the mind. And that gave me a lot of confidence then to do it myself, because like, these people are just talking about what's in their minds and about what they see, and they're expressing themselves. We all can do this. So I think it's a really great platform. We don't know everything just by talking. We explore new ideas. So fantastic, 1,000%. What do you want to talk? What do you want us to talk about, guys? And we'll come back again.
Yep. Okay, great. Alrighty.
Okay, everybody. Thank you all. Have a blessed day or evening or whenever you're watching this, and lots of love.
All right. Catch you later.
Catch you later.